Please welcome your next storyteller to the stage, Sam. Woo!
I didn't have great luck dating after college. I mean, let's face it, I didn't have great luck dating during college. But after college in 1990, I was working a full-time research job in Chicago and hoping to go to medical school. I had majored in philosophy and I'd made an absolute mess of my grades, and so I was doing remedial work by also taking part-time courses and hoping to buff up my transcript. The stumble academically had really shattered my self-confidence, and on top of that, I was living with my roommates who were both going to medical school, so I had this constant daily reminder of my failure. So you combine a very busy workload with a remarkable lack of self-confidence, and it ended up in an epic dating drought. So what do you do back in 1990 in an epic dating drought? This is before online dating. I mean, hell, it was before online. So you really had a limited number of choices, and the number one choice was the personal ads. And when you approach the personal ads, you really have two options. One is that you can answer a personal ad, which at the time involved dialing a 1-900 number and running up your phone bill, and then sounding desperate in somebody's voicemail inbox. Or you could place a personal ad in the Men Seeking Women and take your chances. I was desperate but clever with words, and so I opted for the latter. And sure enough, my first 25-word ad won the Ad of the Week contest in the Chicago Reader, which meant that I got a quarter-page panel ad blow-up of my ad in this newspaper, and which was only benefited by the fact that they didn't have pictures at the time. And so I got a lot of responses. And getting a lot of responses meant that I went on a lot of really weird blind dates. And I learned a lot from going on a lot of really weird blind dates. I learned how to comport myself in a variety of different situations. And along the way, I developed a heuristic, a set of rules to predict whether or not there was going to be a second date. Did the conversation get started quickly, or did we run out of things to talk about after 15 minutes? What was the conversation flow like? Did we stare silently at each other, or were we the last two people talking in a restaurant at the end of a very long evening? And the most important rule, and this was before the advent of automatic door locks, was when I let her into the front seat of the car, did she reach over and unlock the door for me? It's true. Shannon was the epitome of these blind dates. When I knocked on her door and she opened it up, I almost fell over. She was, at the time, the most beautiful woman that I ever saw. She had pale skin and dark brown hair and bright blue eyes, and she was amazing. She was from a very small town in the middle of Oklahoma, but she had no southern accent whatsoever, and she was fluent in German, was about to head off to study French, and she was incredibly specific about her manners and her grammar. She was, to me, the forbidden fruit, a non-Jewish girl who spoke fluent German. And she opened the lock on my car door. So we started dating, and we fell in love, and we even talked about living together, and I took her home to New Jersey to meet my family, and she suggested that I come home to meet her family. Now, I had never been to Oklahoma. This should not come as a surprise by looking at me. My whole world was New York and New Jersey, but nevertheless, I wanted to go and make a good impression on her, and so off we went. And we flew to Oklahoma City, and we spent a couple of days in Norman, Oklahoma, hanging out with some of her college friends, and then we drove 3 hours out into the middle of the woods to a cabin where her grandparents were having a cookout and a bonfire to welcome me. But along the way, as the roads got smaller and smaller and the signs got fewer and fewer, we got lost. And then we got stuck in this thick red mud, so lost that they had to dispatch her brother Shane to come and find us in his pickup truck, and by that point, it was very, very late. And when we showed up at her grandparents' cabin finally, it was so late and the bonfire was going, and to a person, everyone in her family was shit-faced drunk. And I opened the car door, and I was walking out, and her mother walked up to me, big smile, hand out, and said, "Hi, I hear you're Jewish." And right then I knew it was going to be one of those first dates. And sure enough, the evening only devolved from there because I was that northerner or that guy from New York, and Shannon's stepfather wanted to take me out for a walk in the woods so that he could get to know me better in the dark, which I almost said yes to be polite, until multiple members of Shannon's family dissuaded me from doing that. And the evening culminated, I kid you not, in Shannon's brother chasing around her stepfather with a knife, threatening to kill him. It was the most horrible display of manners that I had ever witnessed. Actually, I found Shannon curled up in the back of the cabin, crying inconsolably. And I was so disgusted. And we went back to Oklahoma City the next day, and we flew back to Chicago shortly thereafter. And this could have broken us up, but it didn't. We stayed together, and I learned a tremendous amount from dating Shannon about this. I learned that, we seek people who have a similar manner of life to ours. But despite that, we encounter people with vast differences. We encounter people who sometimes are trying to escape a past that is very different or drunk or terrifying. And if we close ourselves off to those differences, we miss something very important. I learned not to judge. I learned to be open to these remarkable differences, not just in the people that I dated, but to anybody that I let into my life, especially if they were willing to reach across and unlock the door and let me in. Thank you.